this also seems to me to come down to the metrics, because if you're measuring that against reach and frequency each time, you're not asking the media owners for a solution, nor are you even really coming up with a marketing solution to a business problem. You're coming up with a total reach and frequency, and they're not necessarily the same thing.
It's very limiting, especially in a world like today, where a lot of the opportunities are impossible to measure with the old metrics. I mean, I go into word of mouth, into social media, into many other non-transactional based forms of communication, which of course needs to be measured in a totally different way. But I just wanted to go back to the media owner part, because I think there was a connection between the two discussions. In the same way that clients shouldn't waste our time in pitches when, as Dominic was saying before, when they need a number at the bottom of the page, just tell us that's what you want and nothing else. We should do the same sometimes with media owners. And instead of briefing the world and wasting their time on millions of opportunities, we could brief better, get less, which is what we need, and that would be a better relationship.
Interesting.
And I'm sure that we're guilty of doing that, and we behave like our clients sometimes.
You mentioned social media, and it's such a hot topic right now. I feel like we ought to talk about it a little bit. I mean, how real is it, as far as you guys are concerned, in terms of the programs you devise? How big a part of your business is it? And how have you restructured at all to cope with the advent of the social graph, if you like?
Well, I'll just give you a short answer to understand the phenomenon. In terms of people and hours dedicated to it, it's huge. In terms of revenue, is very small. So we've got this unbalance that we've got to find a way to rebalance over the future, because we can't afford not to do it, and we can't afford to do it.
I think Facebook are saying that as well, aren't they? Yeah, no, it's the same phenomenon with Facebook. I mean, these businesses, I mean, where's the revenue model to capitalize on that? It changes everything, though. I think we are doing it. We've created partnerships with different agencies. We've hired a lot of new skill sets in that domain. I think the issue is how we integrate it. One thing I'm realizing from the power of the social networks is that the advocacy that can be generated is changing the way brands are having to behave and brands are having to communicate. I think increasingly, if advertising generated awareness, utility builds advocacy. And we're having to see more brands focus on their utility. Think about the iPhone. You think what Apple have done. Think what Microsoft have done with Zoom. We're seeing great successes where brands are integrating a high level of utility, and through the social media, through the communities, through the bloggers, this is becoming a much more powerful phenomenon than conventional advertising for a brand. And I think advocacy trumps awareness time and time again. So I think the social media, not just social media, but let's just talk about user influence and persuasion-based activities. We need to architect them together. Harder to control, though, because one you buy and one you pay for.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Is it something that you find difficult to cope with in your business? Because your business historically has been about, we're going to take this unit and place this unit next to content. This is about control. This is about people speaking to each other.
Absolutely,
it really
but that's why every category, every decision-making category, whether it's for a car, a holiday, a financial services, everyone in this room is going to have some kind of influence to a higher or lesser degree in terms of what your peer group and what users really think. So we need to make sure we understand who those players are, who has the most important Rolodex, which are the most powerful social media. So in a way, it further changes our business model from doers to thinkers. Because we need to be thought leaders, we need to be strategists, we've got to become architects. And that's different skill sets, it's also different compensation terms.
But as you say, it also starts to, I mean, it takes everyone in the advertising arena so much back to the product. Because if I'm not going to advocate that product to my friend, that product is going to have a relatively short lifespan, right? I mean, we've got a radical transparency there. And that seems to me to point back towards, you know, you're going to have to be about marketing solutions across the board. Do you feel that the media agency has got any closer to being, because again, it's a conversation we've had for 5 years, we're going to have to be channel planners, we're going to have to be marketing thinkers, we're going to have to be a marketing agency. Are we any closer than we were 5 years ago?
Well, I think it's back to Menardo's point. I think we're much closer to where we were 5 years ago, but we're not much closer at finding ways to get properly paid
Yes.
and monetising the whole thing, and,
Right.
and as Nick alluded to, you know, taking the whole thing further upstream and further up the kind of marketing hierarchy. We're struggling with that, I think, as a business. We're still, you know, this is not a bad thing necessarily, but it's a fact, I think, that we're still very, very, very based in solid transactional work. Mm-hmm. It's the majority of our work, the majority of our people.
It is the majority of our people, but if we look at what we do now in comparison to 5 years ago, and it's not just social media and word of mouth, it's also more non-digital forms of communication like events, sports marketing, content, co-productions. We do a lot of things which are not transaction-based. But for each one of them and for each client, we have to reinvent the wheel of a remuneration model to try to bring back some of the value that we have delivered. So the need for a different remuneration system, which is based on the output, on the value delivered, not on the input and the hours of the people that we've lent to the client, is fundamental. Yeah. But not in our interest only, in the interest of the client, because otherwise all these forms of communication will just not happen. Yeah. And you can't not do social media or word of mouth. It happens anyway. They're talking there about your brand. So you can't just say, we don't participate. It's happening anyway, so might as well try to influence it and have a positive spin on what is happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Shona, I think you talk a lot about the way we work and our business model. I think that's one part of it. The second thing to be talking about is not just the way we work, but how we work. And I think this all stems to a need to collaborate more seriously. I mean, Dominic, to your point, we're trying to do it. We can do it. We can see it in sight. There's not enough money to go around. And what we can't do in the world where every generalist has to broken down into specialists, and every specialist is now becoming a super specialist but wants to be the generalist. You know, this wonderful building was designed by one architect, not 12, one. Many project managers, many different builders. And I think what we've got to do is find a way to get the inefficiency with our clients out of the system. Because collectively, and I'm not talking about media agencies, creative agencies, PR agencies, CRM agencies, there's lots and lots of specialists. And ultimately, everything you've been just saying, Bernardo, about the way we need to think between user influence and social marketing, and also to the point of a store. I know Bernard Glock's here. I mean, P&G were one of the first to be focusing on the 2 moments of truth and really be thinking about the shopper, the store, the point of retail. A lot of my clients who are here at the moment, whether they're here or not, I don't know, but I'm dealing with, they are very focused at the moment at the battleground at the point of purchase. Their brands have been built. Their equity is strong. They can afford to dial down the tap at least 50% for the next 12 months till they get through this challenge.
On the brand.
On the brand.
Right.
Not exactly. It's a mixed change. It's not about spending less. They are being forced further down the funnel to the point of battle, which is what are consumers doing as customers? What are they doing as customers? How are they behaving when they're in the store, at the point of retail, or they're online? And again, how well do we integrate our efforts with the shopper marketing? How well do we integrate media owner activities in an integrated way right through to the point of purchase and data capture? I mean, again, it's a very challenging space. So I think it puts more pressure actually on the client community in terms of how to re-architect their agency models when they have to be much more efficient. And then, as you say, most of the agency models, even at the holding company level, are still very fragmented. And yet, we've all got, in the US anyway, we've been reading a lot about the Dell model now being reintegrated back into Y&R because, and again, was that a design fault or was that a timing issue with the economy? I
was going to say that seems somewhat unfortunate to me because that may be a one-off that was specific to the way that was built that might not say that it's
I agree. Could be.